Well, Ann Coulter, of course, a best-selling author. Do you have her book, In Trump We Trust? It's still the best book on Trump. If you haven't read it, it's a big bestseller, In Trump We Trust. Of course, her column, and you go to anncoulter.com. You can get all that there, and follow her on Twitter and Facebook. Ann Coulter, how you doing?
Fine, thanks. How are you, Mark Simone?
Good. You know, I was reading this study before, this English study, about why the Trump phenomenon will last for years. I noticed you put it on Twitter. It's really interesting, and people don't realize it's not just Trump. The middle of America wants the Republicans, Democrats, the swamp, the deep state, the establishment out of power. They want take back control of their country. And it says this will last 16 years.
Yes, it was a frustrating article. It's by Edward Luttwak, very impressive individual. I haven't seen his name for a while. And some of it was so brilliant it was hard to tweet because, you have to cut it down to 140 characters. But then he'd wander off into just utterly insane points that, as I pointed out on Twitter, made me look up how old he is, because he starts sounding like Pierre Salinger when he ran off on that Flight 800 thing, thinking that anything you read on the Internet is true. You wonder if he even paid attention to this election when he starts referring to, for example, Marco Rubio as the most brilliant of them. Did he miss that whole Chris Christie debate thing? I think that has been exposed once and for all. And to describe Ivanka, she has many virtues. She's lovely. I love her clothes. But to describe her as the one inheriting the Trump mantle, which he has just beautifully described and hilariously in many parts, about, for example, one that I tried to tweet but couldn't really get out, that Democrats and Republicans, it is the uniparty. He recognizes that the public hates both political parties. There are elites in both. They're interested in the globe. They're interested in the planet. They are absolutely not interested in factory workers who have lost their jobs and now have low-wage service jobs. And he describes the Democrats as just being, baffled and annoyed by why these factory workers aren't availing themselves of the wonderful opportunities to be fashion designers, political consultants, hedge fund managers. What's the matter with these factory workers? So he does make these brilliant points. And the stress on I love how he describes Bernie Sanders, who couldn't quite get with the Democratic program. I did, as I've said many times, I kind of liked Bernie Sanders. I certainly liked him more when he was a socialist than when he became a Democrat. Because once he became a Democrat, he had to accede to all of the standard nonsense of both the Republican and Democratic Party that treats free trade as a religion. And in particular, what Luttwak says is Bernie had this stubborn insistence on referring to the rich and the poor as opposed to African Americans, Hispanics, LGBT, women, and so on and so forth. The article is worth reading, but I do think maybe Luttwak is getting a little Pierre Salinger-esque. It's
got some good. I've mentioned it before, and people are asking me where to get it. Just go to Ann Coulter on Twitter, and she's got it posted up there. You can see it there. I keep reading these statistics. Donald Trump has taken more vacation days in 7 months than President Obama took in 8 years. I keep trying to tell these Democrats, you can't count Saturdays and Sundays. He does take these vacation days, but it's on the weekend. They've actually fudged the statistics.
I must say, I argued with people on our side during the Obama administration. I know that the party out of power is always going to consider this a really good way to nail the president. Too much vacation time. No one cares. I promise you, no one cares. If Trump, jettisons these trade deals that are costing jobs, and Luttwak is very good on that. If he builds the wall, Luttwak not so good on that. He seems to have missed the part where Trump promised us a wall and not a mere sealing of the border in anticipation of a full amnesty. This is what I mean about him being good on diagnosing the problem, but he seems to have missed all of 2015 and all of 2016 of the actual campaign. If he had, and one thing I noticed this weekend, to the extent I saw anything that was going on, this week, last week, the Trump administration, along with two United States senators, unveiled the most major legislative change that will certainly pass if it is brought to a vote to our immigration policies in half a century, since 1965. Most Americans, I suspect, do not even know that 2/3 of legal immigrants get in not because we want them, but because they're, the third cousin of the guy who came last year.
Yeah.
It's all family reunification. It takes who gets to live and be one of our fellow citizens out of our hands, puts it in foreigners' hands. 2/3 of all legal immigrants get in on this. Well, it's called chain migration because you come in, you get to bring in not only your wife and kids, what Americans think of as immediate family, but what tribal societies think of as immediate family. Your adult brothers and sisters, your elderly parents, they of course immediately access welfare. And then they get to bring in their adult brothers and sisters and their elderly parents and so on and so forth until you have entire tribes and villages living in Minnesota and refusing to drive cabs, pick people up at the airport who have either dogs or alcohol. This is what's been going on with our immigration policy. It was explained beautifully by the magnificent Stephen Miller this week, and all liberals could do is scream, "Oh, he's a racist," and then shut up about it. And what I noticed, I didn't watch the full programs, but all of the major interviews on the Sunday shows, which I know and justifiably most Americans don't watch, to the extent it was mentioned, it did not lead what the news was. They're just right back to the old, Russia conspiracy theories, and they're bringing on all the people who are the elites whom Trump ran against. I mean, like Jeff Flake. He's one of 8 Republicans who voted for Marco Rubio's amnesty. If the 2016 election showed anything, it is that Americans do not want amnesty, and they do want to change to both legal and illegal immigration. And the media and both political parties are going right back to we're not discussing it, we're just going to keep throwing out the same cliches.
Yeah. When they were outraged that he would try to limit immigration, historically, don't we often limit immigration? Didn't Roosevelt sometimes eliminate immigration for a year or two, or at certain times we just choose who we need in the country?
Year or two. It went on for nearly 50 years. From 1924, immigration was totally shut down, right up until it started to pick up in the early 50s a little bit, but the 1965 Act is what dramatically changed our immigration policies. It used to be, well, for one thing, America could be pretty laissez-faire about immigration before there was a welfare state. If you came to America and you couldn't make it, you would not be sunk in the warm bath of food stamps and housing aid and free medical care. No, if you couldn't make it, you'd go home, and that's why pre-1965 immigrants, 30% of them went home. Now nobody goes home. They sign up for, free Obamacare.
Yeah.
And when it was laissez-faire, most of our immigrants did come from the settler countries, the countries that created America, the British Isles and the Netherlands, and then also a lot from Germany and Italy. Post-1965, they are overwhelmingly coming from as diverse cultures as you could imagine, extremely poverty-stricken, extremely, extremely different, and not only apparently quite crime-prone, but prone to different kinds of crimes that we're not capable of dealing with. I mean, this massive credit card fraud and Medicare and Medicaid scams, the crash for cash insurance fraud schemes. America isn't used to dealing with these sorts of crimes. We're used to dealing with our criminals.
Yeah. Or these Nigerian scams everywhere.
They're majoring in credit card fraud in University of Lagos.
Yeah, so if you lived in Nigeria, are you getting weird emails from American scammers?
It's amazing that those things still go around.
I mean, I can't imagine that anybody in America, when they hear the word Nigerian, doesn't hit delete immediately.
Well, Pierre Salinger and Edward Luttwak.
Right. Well, it's a great piece that she's referring to. If you missed it, go to Ann Coulter's Twitter feed, and you can see it there. She has it up. And, of course, get her book, In Trump We Trust. That is still the best Trump book. And
yes, it is.
A new column comes out later this week. Now, when you go to AnnCoulter.com, make sure you sign up. That way you're always the first to get the column. And Ann Coulter, thanks for being with us.
It's so weird talking to you early this week. I feel like Friday should be coming in a couple of days.
Oh, that's true. But normally you're on Wednesday. But this week, Wednesday, our second hour is preempted by a Mets game.
Oh, it's a Mets game. Okay.
Yeah, but that's just
Worthy
this one
cause.
time. Just this one time. Then next week back to Wednesdays. AnnCoulter.com is where you want to go. Ann Coulter, thanks for being with us.
Good to talk to you, Mark Simone. Bye-bye.
Take care.